I'm a giant blob of red today. This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Hello, it's Echo. Welcome to another glorious video on this wonderful art channel of mine. It is currently the month of May, and we all know what that means, MerMay. In the art community, artists like to do this thing where we draw a thing every single day of the month. October is Inktober. There's always like a yearly prompt list, but in the month of May, we draw mermaids. However, mermaids are not really my thing, but I did want to do some kind of thing for MerMay, so instead I decided to make this month about sea monsters. Creepy creatures from the deep. Recently I've been in a very creepy Halloween mood, as many of you already know. I figured if I did roughly one drawing every other day, I would have a lot to show you and also be able to keep my sanity. This is a lot. This is a lot more than I remember. 15 is a big number. Naturally, when you start these things, you have a lot of enthusiasm and excitement, so you pour a lot more time and effort into them, whereas towards the end, it slowly starts to fall off a little bit. So I did give this one kind of an overall mermaid shape in that it does have a humanoid torso and a fishtail. And then the face kind of ended up a little bit alien, which is fine. It came out really nice. When I was initially making like the concept for what I was gonna do for the whole month, what I wanted to do was to work a lot with the smudge tool to create like gradient shading. It's a tool that I really enjoy using and I like how the end result looks, but it takes a million years. It also doesn't help that I've trained myself over the years to be very light-handed, because it's easier for me to make things very light and then just go over them again and again and again to bring out the darkness than it is to make something that's really dark and then have to try and take that back, if that makes any sense. This is one of my favorite things that I did for the whole month, honestly, because this is probably the one that I poured the most time and effort into. I'm very happy with the overall look. It was a solid starting point. The second picture that I drew was kind of inspired by the shape of sharks, but I also wanted to add kind of like a humanoid element, so I gave it some arms and then a longer kind of flexible tail. The main thing for this one was that I really didn't want it to have a neck. I feel like if I gave it a neck, it would kind of push it over the edge into the humanoid direction, so I wanted this one to be like pretty fish. Because all of these were so incredibly light, one of the things that I would do towards the end is that I would just completely duplicate everything. That way all of the intensities would just be completely doubled. It was definitely necessary. I streamed drawing either the first or second one on Twitch. I honestly can't remember which one. This next one was kind of inspired by a combination of blobfish, seals, and I guess turtles. He's got kind of like a Bulbasaur mouth thing going on. When I was coming up with the concept for this, I wanted to do something that was just absolutely nothing like the first two drawings, and I wanted to get it kind of as far away from a humanoid shape as I could, and this is what I ended up with. It's like a giant worm fish blob creature thing with really tired eyes. He looks so tired. I relate. I also wanted to do a tail that was very different, so I added kind of like webbing almost. It's almost like a webbed hand with lots of spinities. The majority of my time on this was spent smudging and shading. I picture him being kind of huge, like the size of a room. He looks really chill though. Now for this fourth one, I kind of wanted to make something with like an eel shape. This was, again, me trying to get as far away from previous body types that I'd drawn as possible. So I wanted to give it something like arms, but not just arms. So instead it kind of has these wing-like fins. When I was streaming these drawings, I had people suggest a bunch of fish-like things, which I used as inspiration throughout this month. Very helpful. So this has a lot of inspiration from the shape of eels. Because the first three drawings had kind of like fin tails, I decided to give this one just like a flat sort of snake eel tail. This was one of the last ones that I had fully shaded, that I went through with the smudge tool and smeared out everything. So this was one of the last ones that I spent like a ton of time shading in. And you can see that with the next one. So with this one I wanted to bring in more mermaid type elements to make it more MerMay, but I also didn't want to just make like the lower half a fish body. So instead I decided to go kind of like Ursula and give her a whole octopus body, but I still didn't want her to be like completely humanoid, so instead I gave her kind of claws. And then I brought in that kind of alien face from the first one, but this time I gave her a mouth instead of a nose. And originally I wasn't going to give her hair, but it just felt kind of off without it. This is also the first one where I decided to include line art instead of just using shading. And my original plan was to continue with the shading, but just use it kind of sparingly. And then the only part that I shaded was the hair. I also wasn't going to originally do all 8 legs, partially out of laziness, but also because I figured maybe the hands would count. But I did kind of cave towards the end and add the other legs. Moving on to number 6. With this one I was kind of thinking of like classic sea monsters, and one of the ones that came up in my mind was the Leviathan, like the classic giant snake dragon monster that like jumps out of the ocean and eats the whole ships. Like the one that you see on maps, just kind of going up and down. I really like that concept of sea monster. Oh my god, I have such bad allergies right now. I also decided to do this one kind of upside down with the head on the bottom and then the body going up, just because different, you know? And then I also gave them one big beautiful eye because I wanted to make something very different from the previous drawings that I have in the set. And then I also did a tiny bit of shading in the mouth, mainly because I was worried that the drawings would start stylistically getting away from the way they were in the beginning of the month, and then at some point I stopped caring, and they did. Starting with drawing number 7, there's no shading in this one, and there's no shading in any drawing after this. It is all line art from here. We are all line art all the time. I knew from the beginning that I did want to have some mermaids in this, so I decided to make like a mermaid siren for this one. So this one is pretty humanoid. It's also pretty, I don't know, cartoonishly stylistic. I gave her a bit of like a jack-o'-lantern smile. It's a very easy way to make things creepy. And then there's really nothing else I can say about this. It's got a pretty straightforward, just mermaid shape, mermaid hair. She does have like very sharp fingers though. And then I also gave her a very classic mermaid tail shape. This one is also one of my favorites. I really like it. And then for day 8, I decided to make a merman, but I wanted him to be a little more fish than man, so I gave him a fish face. I also wanted the body pose to be like very contrasting to the siren, so I made him kind of upside down, sort of swimming down almost. Also to extra push him away from a human form, I gave him crab claws. I was pretty proud of this torso and the eye. It's not the greatest torso in the world, like there's little parts about it that I don't like, but I can tell that it's human, and that's good enough for me. But the eye, I was so happy with because it actually looks goldfishy, and I didn't use a reference. Shouldn't admit to that on camera, but I like him. He's a good fish boy. On the 9th day, there were a couple elements from the Twitch stream that I really liked that I wanted to incorporate into something, so I decided to again go with like a classic Leviathan kind of feel, but I wanted to add kind of like an angler fish feel to it, so I gave it like the really sharp spinety teeth and the anglerfish light, and then I also kind of stretched out the face so that it ended up kind of kind of square like a crocodile. The body ended up having kind of like a snake underbelly feel, which is okay. It's not the best. It feels a little haphazardly put together, but I like how it all comes together. I imagine if you have like a phobia of snakes, this one would be unpleasant to look at. Not necessarily scary or anything, just uncomfortable. It's not my favorite, but I do like this one. Number 10. I don't know how I feel about this one. So when I was going through the list, there were quite a few sea creatures that I felt like I was underutilizing or that I hadn't done anything with. So I decided to take a couple of those and just kind of mash them together. So this one is kind of like a clam and a jellyfish and seaweed. This one is just weird looking. I don't know how I feel about this one. It kind of reminds me of the weird brain creatures from that one episode of Courage the Cowardly Dog. Car broke. Phone, yes. The one where they steal Miriam's kindness. That's what it reminds me of. It's just kind of beady-eyed. I think this one is the most unsettling for me to look at. I don't like it. It's icky. The line work is good though. I don't know if this one is my all-time favorite, but this is definitely one of my favorites. So for day 11, I just decided to full-on go classic mermaid. I also kind of wanted to try and like add some dimension, so I drew the tail kind of wrapping around. But I also wanted her to have like a more human kind of presence, so I wanted to give her like a human belly and like some folds kind of, so she has like a more human stomach. I don't know why I gave her fangs. I feel like I kind of did that to just point to the fact that she is still a monster. Mermaids have some pretty creepy folklore type stuff around them, and they can be pretty dangerous. This one has probably the most detail of any of the drawings I did. It's super cute. I really like her. More chubby mermaids, please. And now we've reached day 12, where most of my motivation for making these drawings has slowly begun to dissipate, and thus my next 3 concepts are kind of crap. For day 12, I wanted to make a two-tailed mermaid like the one in the Starbucks logo, but I didn't want to just make her a mermaid, so I gave her kind of an egghead and threw on some seaweed and coral. Those are ocean things, right? I really like the look of coral. That was something that I knew I wanted to incorporate in one of these drawings somewhere, because it's a very cool, very beautiful, very intricate looking thing that happens in the ocean. So that's why I made it this kind of big royal collar looking thing. Overall, this one is okay. It's not the worst thing I've ever drawn in my life, but it's definitely not the best. If I had to rank all of the drawings in this one would be kind of towards the bottom. Now we move on to number 13. So I wanted to do something that had a seahorse tail because they're kind of just fun little swirls, but I couldn't get the body to work right in previous drawings with the seahorse tail, but I did manage to get it to work for this one. This one was inspired by elements of seahorses and axolotls. They've got a really fancy curly seahorse tail and then very clearly an axolotl head. I also decided not to do a neck. Sometimes you just don't want to draw a neck, and so you don't. Not everything needs a neck. When I was trying to figure out how many limbs to give this creature, I thought it would be kind of interesting to put all of the limbs just on the upper torso and then give it 4 limbs. So it technically has a normal amount of limbs and a tail, but it looks funky and I like it. The line art on this one is okay. The concept is a little weak in my eyes. I feel like this is one that could use a lot more detail. It's not bad, just simple. Cute little web toes. And drawing number 14. This one might be my least favorite out of all of them. He's kind of krill-like, isn't he? His face is just weird. The spinities are really cool and I really like the legs and the tail's alright. It kind of reminds me of the Loch Ness Monster if the Loch Ness Monster was like half krill. The face just feels very incomplete. I think that's probably one of the reasons I don't really like this one. The eyes look kind of off. I tried to replicate my little fisheye thing and it just didn't really fit as well on this facial shape. I like how the arms and legs look. I like the position. I like the tail and the spinities, but there's just something about the head that feels off. If I was gonna redo this, I would definitely just redo the head. This one has a lot of potential, but unfortunately, it's going in the trash. And last but not least, number 15. This is one that's very complex, but I actually really like it. This is like a merman, but instead of being half fish, it's like 70% crustacean. This one has a lot of detail and took a very long time, especially given the brush that I decided to use on this. I'm glad that I was able to end on a high note because I do like the overall shape of this one, and this is the appropriate amount of like monster to human ratio. This is not something that you would want to see in real life. I kind of picture him like with just his head out of the water, so it just looks like a normal crab, and then he stands up and it's just like, Mah! Terrifying. Can you imagine that running at you on a beach? This gives off creepy ocean creature vibes, and I like it. I love him. He's great. I also really like that I was able to end this series on a high note because I really like this guy. Pretty cool. Good eating. Oh, maybe not. I forgot about the human part. But that's pretty much all of my process for MerMay. I really enjoyed doing this and I like a lot of the drawings that came out of it. So I kind of want to start doing monthly challenges, just, you know, to challenge myself. I've got lots of ideas. We'll see how long it lasts. Now before I tell you how you can access these drawings as coloring pages, I'd like to talk to you about this video's sponsor, Skillshare. I actually really love Skillshare a lot. Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. Explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in your creativity. Skillshare offers creative classes designed for real life and all the circumstances that come with it. These lessons can help you stay inspired, express yourself, and connect you to a community of millions. Whether you're interested in graphic design, illustration, animation, or crafts, Skillshare has you covered with thousands of accessible classes. I recently rewatched Bullet Journaling Your Way by Jessica Wigno. I think that's how you say it. I feel like I haven't been as organized as I was a couple months ago, so I'm trying to get back on that train, and bullet journaling helps. It's curated specifically for learning, which means there's no ads, and they're always launching new premium content. Also, it's less than $10 a month with an annual subscription, which means that you can stay focused and just go wherever your creativity takes you. Also, the first 1,000 of my followers to click the link in my description will get a 2-month free trial of premium membership to explore your creativity. Once again, thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. I couldn't do this as a job without awesome brands like them. As for all of these drawings, if you go to echoisweird.shop, you can buy the entire set for $5 as a printable/digital coloring page set. 33 cents a drawing. I'm also going to be giving some of my Patreon tiers just access to them for free, so if you're already part of the Patreon, then you can just download it from the Patreon page, and it will help support the channel a lot because COVID has slashed my ad revenue. My channel's kind of taken a hit during this pandemic, so if you would like to buy a coloring book, it would help out the channel. I'll probably upload one of the pages to my Twitter just as like a freebie, so follow me there if you want that. I think that's everything though, so I'm gonna give you 1,300 awesome points for making it all the way to the end of this video. I hope that you have a lovely day. I'm gonna go stream on Twitch, and I will see you later. Goodbye!